St. Louis sports fans, go deeper with STL Sports Central Insiders. Get exclusive access to Bernie, Randy, Claves, Jamal Mayers, and more. Plus, your chance to watch a Blues game in the alumni box with Jamal himself. Monthly giveaways, Bernie's columns all week, and support for local sports media. Join now at stlsportscentral.com.
What is up, guys? Welcome into Card Central 365. I'm Ethan Hannaford. He is Hunter Mulholland, and we are appreciative that you are joining us on this wonderful Sunday afternoon, December 21st, 2025, nearing Christmas time. You know, I love this time of year because, well, first off, everyone just seems to be in a better mood, a giving mood, but also, you know what? It's the time of year when you can kind of get away with the wish list, and maybe you get some of them granted, maybe you don't. And today we're going to be in large part discussing some of these intriguing 2026 storylines for the St. Louis Cardinals, in which you could argue, for me at least, I'm kind of putting them on the wish list, hoping that a lot of these work out, and that as a result we feel even more optimistic about the future of the St. Louis Cardinals come 2026 and beyond. Ethan Hannaford, Hunter Mulholland, Cards Central 365 on STL Sports Central. We are brought to you by DraftKings. The crown is yours. Hunter, how are you doing this afternoon?
I am doing great this afternoon. This is a beautiful day. And Samuel House says, yeah, it's the first day of winter. Winter might be here, but it's like 60 to 70 degrees outside, and it's going to be warm on Christmas Day. So maybe winter's holding off for a little bit and giving some nice weather.
We are in the festive mood, as you can see by our background here on today's live stream. We did that for you, the people. So let's go ahead before we dive into some of our most intriguing storylines of the year. There's been some commotion in Major League Baseball this past week with a huge 3-team trade involving the Tampa Bay Rays, the Pirates, the Orioles. And as a result of that, a new team perhaps jumping into the sweepstakes for Brendan Donovan. Hunter, you want to share the latest on the newest team perhaps getting in the mix here?
Yeah, so when the Rays made their moves, they traded Shane Baz to the Orioles, but then they also turned around and moved Brandon Lau over to the Pirates. And that kind of opens up a spot. And Ken Rosenthal of The Athletic kind of mentioned it in his write-up earlier, that the Diamondbacks second baseman Ketel Marte and St. Louis Cardinals second baseman Brendan Donovan might be guys that they're in the position to acquire now. And so we've talked about it for the last couple of weeks, where it's starting to lean heavier towards Seattle and San Francisco. So what do the Rays have that they could throw into the mix and be a top contender to land a Brendan Donovan type of player, whether it is him or not, especially when the ball is kind of rolled in the Mariners' court for a while, and it's kind of just sitting there right now waiting for them to put in an offer that Chaim Bloom likes and feels comfortable moving off of Brendan Donovan for.
Most certainly is going to be something to keep an eye on. We know that the Seattle Mariners, the San Francisco Giants have been discussed as the two heavy hitters right now in on Brendan Donovan, the favorites to acquire the Cardinals utility man. But could the Tampa Bay Rays sneak in there? We know that they are known for their prospect pool. That has always been their thing. They are not one of the teams that is going to be making big splash acquisitions in the free agent market every offseason. That is not who they are. Could they be a team that has what the Cardinals are looking for prospect-wise? And could the two sides make something work out? Okay, intriguing 2026 storyline time. And by the way, if you guys have some, send them in the comments. Share your thoughts on ours, but we want to hear some of your most intriguing storylines for the Cardinals 2026 season as well. Like Samuel here saying that he wishes that Tink Hence could become a premier setup man. I tell you what, this is actually, before we dive into ours, this one is pretty interesting to me. We know that Tink Hence has had his issues as far as injuries go. And for that reason, I think a lot of people think that Tink Hence is going to be a safer option coming out of the bullpen because I think you're probably just a little bit less likely to have to deal with injuries if you're coming out of the bullpen. He's looked really good in short-term starts, in shorter outings? Are they going to be able to stretch him out to where he is consistently throwing 5-6 innings and staying healthy? I'm not super confident that they will. We know that he has some zip on the fastball. Could he work out as a late bullpen kind of guy? It certainly is an interesting thought, and it'll be interesting to see how long the Cardinals are willing to go to try and stretch him out before they say, okay, it's just not working.
Yeah, he reminds me too much of Alex Reyes and that fiasco where he got his opportunities and then he got hurt as a starter over and over and over again. And then eventually, by the time that it's nearly time for him to go on to somewhere else, he finds and has a really strong season in the back of the bullpen, but then falls apart and is now out of Major League Baseball. So I really would like to see them maybe pull the trigger on Tink Hence early in that aspect and move him to the bullpen, because they know that if he's in shorter outings, it's less wear and tear on the arm in a more controlled state versus being, every fifth day you got to go out there and you got to give us at least try and give us 6 strong, 7 strong innings. And it is it's eerily similar to that Alex Reyes situation where he had injuries. He came back. They tried to make him a starter. He got more injuries. And then eventually they pulled the trigger and said, okay, you're going to be a reliever. But at that point, it was almost too late. The damage was already done to his arm. So I would like to see them not do that to Tink Hence and maybe do it early. Maybe start setting it up this year. Be like, hey, we're going to set you up as you're going to be the 8th, 9th inning guy for Memphis or Springfield or wherever you're going to line up to be this year. That's where you're going to be. And you're going to go out there every 3 days and you're going to throw the 8th or 9th. It doesn't matter the score, just to kind of set you up for that type of role and that type of preparation system. Because as we all know, pitchers are very, very focused. Trying to find a nice word. They're very, very focused and weird in an aspect of if they get thrown off their routine, everything goes haywire. Like, I mean, there's guys like in the league like Max Scherzer.
Sure, for some of them, I wouldn't say necessarily ever, but they are very routine oriented. And yes, I totally understand what you're trying to say there. It'll be interesting to see what that leash is with Tink Hence, as you were kind of mentioning. You're hoping it's a little bit shorter. Some maybe out there are hoping that it's a little bit longer. It sounds like Samuel is not one of those people. He's on your side with the shorter leash, because there are guys, Eshawn, Quinn Matthews, Liam Doyle, that he feels confident. And I think that that's a very fair point. Will be effective starters someday at the major league level. Okay, let's go ahead and let's jump into some of our most intriguing 2026 storylines for the St. Louis Cardinals. Hunter, why don't you go ahead and start off with your number one?
So my first one, and this is something that has been in the works for the last couple of seasons. It is focused on Jordan Walker. Is this his last kind of rodeo? Is this his last deal where if he doesn't break out, they're going to cut ties and they're just going to say and cut losses and move on from him? But there is also the aspect of, if it is, can he break out? Earlier in the offseason, Walker, this is coming from CBS Sports, Walker said earlier this week that he found something with his swing while working at Driveline Baseball in October, and that was real exciting. And that's a quote coming from Derek Gould of the St. Louis Post-Dispatch. But is this the year that he breaks out? Can it be? Because he had a lot of hype coming up, right? He's the number one prospect in the organization. They think that he's the next God-sent prospect to lead the team and be an all-star every year and continue on that tradition of Cardinals having Hall of Famers on their roster. It has not panned out. He's struggled at the major league level. He's been sent down numerous times. Is this his last rodeo with the Cardinals if it doesn't work? I want to see it work.
Oh, of course, absolutely. I don't know who wouldn't want to see it work. When you look at his build, his athleticism, the potential is there. It is great potential. This is the final year. 2026 will be the final year before he enters arbitration. So the Cardinals still have a lot of control on him. If you were asking me, I would say that this is not the final year for him necessarily. Now, obviously, a lot of that has to do, in my opinion, with where the Cardinals are. If the Cardinals are not in a place by the start of 2027 to where they feel like they are ready to go, it is guns a-blazing if we're playing baseball even at that point. But if, let's say, in some miracle we have a full season in 2027 and the Cardinals, still are not ready to be a contender, then what is the point of moving on from Jordan Walker and giving up on him? I mean, everything we hear Ollie Marmol say, we hear them talk about, is that they still believe in this kid. And I don't know. I hear that, and I hear a guy, I heard a quote, I think it was at the winter meetings when they were asked about, what they are wanting to work on with him. And Marmol basically said something along the lines of where we want to see growth is trust, is Jordan being able to trust that when we are telling him to make adjustments, that he's going to trust us, that we're doing it in the best interest, and that this makes sense, or this is what he should do, rather than this is what I'm comfortable with, this is what I want to stick with. So it just sounds like they're just trying to build the right habits for Jordan Walker. And once they can get on the same page and once they can get it clicking, then there's great potential for that, I think, to still work out at some point. Jordan Walker still has loads of team control. If the Cardinals aren't going to be a contender in 2027, let's say that it still is a bumpy year in 2026 for him, then what's the point of moving on? It's not like his trade value it would be bumping up necessarily, So I don't know. I think that some people are like, we need to know this year now. It needs to happen right now. Unless you have someone else that's absolutely banging on the door for a spot in the minors, and you're like, okay, we gotta get this kid an opportunity. I don't see anyone like that right now. As far as outfielders go, I'm okay with just continuing to let him roll, let him develop. Someone in the chat mentioned at one point, maybe even look at time in Memphis this year. Make sure if you don't feel like the swing's in a great spot. My biggest thing with Jordan Walker is what Ollie Marmol said this year: is try and find that trust, try and build that trust to where you feel good on both sides about when there are corrections that need to be made, that Walker believes that is they can be on the same page as far as what is best for him and the adjustments that need to be made. Okay, moving into the next one. My first most intriguing 2026 storyline has to do with the most important prospect that the Cardinals have had in their last 20 years, and that is J.J. Weatherholt, maybe even longer than that. Weatherholt, the 7th overall pick in the 24 Major League Baseball draft. Listen, I said that he's the most important draft pick that you have had in a very long time. What he does this year, if J.J. Weatherholt has a Rookie of the Year quality season, the Cardinals could win 70 games, and fans are still going to look at this year and say, yeah, it was bumpy, it sucked, and we knew there was a chance for it to be like that. But J.J. Weatherholt, my goodness, you got your piece. You got one of your cornerstones. The Cardinals don't have that. They have accent pieces. Alec Burleson is a great accent piece. Ivan Herrera, very strong accent piece, potential to eventually be a cornerstone, but they don't have that foundational guy that they can build around right now that can be anywhere from 1 to 5 in your lineup. They don't have that. J.J. Weatherholt has the potential to be that. So I'm not projecting that this year is going to necessarily be Rookie of the Year quality from him. It could be with the way that he has looked. But, man, I just look at what J.J. Weatherholt could be. This season could be abysmal as far as the record goes at the end of 162. But if J.J. Weatherholt has a strong year, then fans will be willing to, I think, overlook that bad record even more so because they understand what the Cardinals are trying to do. That has to be, in my opinion, that is by far the biggest storyline of 2026 is what does J.J. Weatherholt do at the major league level?
Yeah, J.J. Weatherholt is obviously the biggest prospect. I'd probably say Sid Taveras. is probably as far back as I would go. I mean, Tavares was projected to be, the next Albert Pujols before he sadly passed away. But when it comes to Weatherholt, is there any worry in your head are we rushing him too much? Are we pushing him kind of in the same deal as Jordan Walker, where maybe we're getting him here a little bit too early and we're rushing him? I don't think so. I don't necessarily think that that's the case, because I think where this team is right now, you just got to kind of see what you have. And if you believe that JJ Weatherholt's going to be, a future cornerstone and a future franchise player, he just needs to get reps and get experience at the major league level as early as possible to build that confidence at the major league level with what he's done at the minor leagues. If he was hitting 200 at the minor leagues, I wouldn't be saying this right now. But with what he's done in the minor leagues last year, that's where it's okay. He's got the potential to do it. This is going to be a year where you're really kind of seeing again what you have. You're building for the future. Let the young kids play. Let them get experience. Let them build some confidence up at the major league level and work through those rough patches, and then try and build to contend into maybe even 3 years. We'll see what the plan ends up being based on how Heim attacks the rest of this offseason and how he attacks the next season trade deadline. But like you said, I think that there's a lot to see with JJ Weatherholt in this upcoming year. If he has a rookie of the year type of year, then you've got one of those guys that you can lean on and build on and trust in the future when you need it the most. When you have those moments in October, the guys that you want at the plate, JJ Weatherholt surely can be the type of player that you want him to be in those moments.
I would argue regarding the comp to Jordan Walker and whether or not Weatherholt is being rushed. You look at the AA numbers; both of them were very strong for both Weatherholt and Walker on their climb up. The difference is that Walker, in his time in AAA, he really struggled. He really struggled during his 84 games. He didn't struggle significantly, but he struggled enough to where it wasn't out of this world numbers. In 2023, he batted .239. He had a .746 OPS in AAA. So, you could argue what is struggling, but it certainly was a level down from 2022 when he batted .306 in AA. If you remember, Jordan Walker went straight from AA to AAA. He did not spend any time prior to his major league debut in AAA. He started, and then after the handful of games that he played at the major league level, they set him back down because he wasn't elevating the ball enough. And that's when he had to make all those corrections at the major league level, and he came up, or at the minor league level, and then he came back up later in the year. So the difference is Jordan Walker went straight from AA to the majors, and JJ Weatherholt mashed the baseball last year, both in AA and AAA. That's the difference. Is JJ Weatherholt has shown the ability to be able to hit very effectively at both levels, at AA and AAA, when Jordan Walker didn't do so. That is why when I look at JJ Weatherholt, I don't necessarily compare them the same. A lot of people were advocating that Weatherholt, the Cardinals should give him a look at the end of last year. I was not a fan of that for that same reason, as I don't think there's any reason that you have to rush him. Let him finish out the year in AAA. It's not going to be that much of a game changer, in my opinion. It's not like you are in a race to be competing like by the end of 2026, right? So, I mean, to me, it just felt like it would have been an unnecessary risk to get him to the major league level last year. But when you look at the numbers, they prove that the two are on different paths, we're on different tracks. That's not to say that JJ Weatherholt, it's going to be all smooth sailing for him at the major league level in 2026, but he's proven, I think, that he is ready for this level. We're going to get continued affirmation in that, hopefully, at spring training. But Kayla brings up a great point here as well. JJ Weatherholt played, had college experience. He's a lot older. more developed in his play than Jordan Walker was at that time as well. So it's hard to compare the two in that sense of JJ is just a much more mature hitter at the plate, especially when you bring up some of the StatCast stuff. But yeah, I am not concerned at this point about the Cardinals rushing him too much. If they would have brought him up last year, maybe I'd be a little bit more concerned, but I'm not extremely concerned. Some people, are arguing that, they still want to see him in the minors even longer, which I get it. I personally, if he has a good spring, I would love for him to be our starting second baseman on opening day. We'll see if that ends up being the case. But let's go ahead. Let's go ahead and move on to the next one as we continue on with the most intriguing 2026 storylines.
Yeah, so my next pick was Kyle Leahy's spring training push for a starting role. So after the Sonny Gray trade, it seemed like everybody was kind of in this boat of, okay, Kyle Leahy's going to be in the rotation now, right? That's kind of the logical step. He had a really strong back half of the year, made the right adjustments, and really showed on the mound that he can play and he can go long innings and eat innings. You saw him come in multiple times when Michaelis or a starting pitcher, calling out Michaelis because I remember that one specifically, but see a starting pitcher go 3 innings and then he comes in and he eats 3 or 4 himself and can kind of stretch out of the bullpen. So stretching him out and planning him to be a starter, what does that entail for him? What is the future there for him? Is that a logical pathway for him to be on this roster, or is he going to be one of the guys that is, okay, you're probably going to be in this mix of Jojo Romero and Swanson in that back end of the bullpen mess that they've kind of got going on right now, trying to figure out what they've got and who's going to be their closer, who's going to be their setup man. I want to see them enter spring training with him as a starting pitcher and give him the opportunity to prove himself. But if he doesn't in spring training, where does he fit in that bullpen? Because now you've stretched him out. Does he go back into that long relief type of role? Or do you try and say, okay, well, we're going to compress you back down into a 1 to 2 inning guy? I think that his best would be in the starting rotation. That's where he's best served for this team next year. But I'm interested to see what the spring training plan comes in with the signing of Dustin May. Does that eat at Leahy? Does that eat at Palante? Whose innings is Dustin May taking away when it comes to the starting rotation?
I don't know if Dustin May at this point is taking away any of the guys that you have, any of their innings yet, because the Cardinals were so depleted as far as their starting pitching goes going into the offseason that, they had to get to where they had 5 guys first before you can start plucking away at who is going to miss out on innings. Miles Michaelis gone, Sonny Gray gone. You had to fill in those spots. At one point, it was McGreevy, Liberatore, and Palante were the 3 starters that you had confirmed for next year. Then they acquire Richard Fitz, and now they've acquired Dustin May. So you have 5 guys now. So as far as right now, if things were to end today, if this was your roster going into 2026, that would be your starting 5 probably. Well, I guess Leahy's in there as well, so that's 6.
Somebody's got to lose innings.
Yeah, someone. So you're right. That's not to say, like, even if it was that today, like, they're probably still going to add a couple of more guys. If if it was up to me, at least I would, because last year they had 7 starting pitchers last year, and that they were very fortunate that they made it work with 7 guys because there was not a lot of depth in AAA or in the minor league levels. So if you look at what Kyle Leahy has done or what he did last year, very effective in the long relief sort of spot that he was in, some setup, but a lot of multi-inning appearances, by far led the Cardinals in innings thrown out of the bullpen. But what works so much for Kyle Leahy and why it makes sense to try and move him to the starting rotation is because of his pitch arsenal. This is a guy that throws a four-seam, a slider, a curveball, a sweeper, a changeup, and a sinker. Count that up. That's 6 different pitches. It's not very often that you see guys in the bullpen that have a 6-pitch arsenal, right? So I mean,
have enough fingers to call those.
Yeah, I mean, so you got a guy that would make a lot of sense in the starting rotation right now. If it doesn't work out in spring training, then okay, you had a formula that worked really well for him last year. Just go back to that. I'd be really surprised if that happens. I expect him to be a part of the starting rotation next year. But, we're going to have to wait and see what happens in spring training. Brian arguing that he thinks Fitz and Palante will be competing for the last spot as of now, but says they're going to add another starter. I would expect them to add another Richard Fitz type starter as well, someone that is on the cusp, has had a little bit of major league time, but is looking for an opportunity. I would expect them to add 1, maybe 2 more of those guys, because like I said, right now they got 6. I don't think that they feel like Quinn Matthews is ready. A lot of those guys that you were hoping were going to be ready this year were dealing with injuries, Takoa Roby and some of those other guys. So I think that they're going to want to add to that because they know that they can't get away. There's no way they will be lucky enough back-to-back years to where they can roll with 7 guys in the starting rotation. It just is not that easy. It's not that simple. So I hope that Kyle Leahy is a part of the rotation next year, but we'll just have to wait and see what exactly happens come spring training. Okay, I'm going to go into my final 2026 headline that I'm super intrigued by. We have more of these, but we're just running out of time. I am going to go ahead and say that I got 2 here that I'm like kind of bouncing back and forth as to like which one I want to discuss. I'll go ahead and throw Ivan Herrera at the catcher position as one of my most intriguing storylines of 2026. And the reason that I look at Herrera is because we know how well the bat plays. We know how good it looked in 2025. The Cardinals are going to give him another shot as the catcher. And if things work, if the surgery that he had to kind of clean things up in his elbow, if that fixes things, if all of a sudden Ivan Herrera can throw base runners out, then you have something very interesting because you have a catcher that can hold his own defensively while also being a very impactful bat. Completely changes how the Cardinals look at him and makes him so much more valuable than if he is just a designated hitter. If it works out, you have 3 very high-level catching prospects right now in the minors that you got to figure out, okay, if Ivan Herrera ends up being your guy, then what do you do with them? That's one of the things. But it also just opens up the way in which you can use that designated hitter position that much more as well if Ivan Herrera can be an impactful defensive catcher as well. I'm not asking for above average. I'm quite literally asking for league average defensive numbers, throwing out ability, framing, all of those things. I am asking for league average. And if you can get that from Ivan Herrera, that makes it very interesting as far as how you can kind of set everything up around him, the DH position, what you do with your with those prospects eventually. Very intrigued by Ivan Herrera getting another opportunity to be the go-to catcher for this Cardinals team in 2026.
Yeah, I'm interested to see what happens there. I think the catching position, ever since Yadier Molina retired, has just been this whirlwind of, okay, well, it's Contreras. Okay, well, Contreras keeps getting hurt, so we're going to have to move him. Okay, well, we've got Ivan Herrera, who is a top prospect and has shown flashes of being very good and is a outstanding hitter. But then he had some injuries, and he also struggled defensively. Okay, well, so we got Pedro Pages, who's maybe a little bit better defensively, but we lack on the offensive side of things. So I think that when it comes to Herrera and when it comes to the best suiting of the team of flexibility with the lineup, it's Herrera being the catcher. And DKT says, do you think that Herrera would be suited to being a personal catcher to one of the staff and let him get his reps while minimizing the wear and tear on him long term? I don't hate that idea. Maybe split it between, a 3-2 kind of deal with Pages. That way you still have the flexibility more often on a regular basis than, just when Liberators pitching, we're gonna have Herrera catch, or just when Leahy goes out there on the mound, we're gonna have Herrera catch. I think that would be it's an interesting spot to be in because you're trying to really figure out whether or not he's going to be your long-term catcher. And that was a spot where the Cardinals were in those last, 5 or 6 years of Yadier Molina. They had Andrew Kisner and Carson Kelly come up, who were both highly rated catchers coming up through the minor league system. But you have Yadier Molina, so you're not going to use them to the capacity that maybe their prospect status says. And so that's kind of where you're at with the catching prospects that are coming up is, okay, well, nobody is got the job right now, then these guys are definitely going to be in the running for it. You're going to have Jimmy Cooks give him his shot. And the other prospects with them, you're going to give them their shot at that position. But if Herrera turns into the guy behind the plate, then you're in the spot that you were in with Yadier Molina, where it was, okay, well, we've got to get rid of him. At least this time it's in an early portion of the career instead of the late stages, because I think they held on to Kelly and Kisner a little bit too long for their value, to where, okay, well, now that we move them out, like we waited too long to move them out, mainly because we weren't sure how much longer Yadier Molina was going to play. But I want to see, like you said, I want to see at league average defensive numbers while he continues to put up the offensive numbers of a catcher. And with the way that catching is going now with the ABS, you're going to start to see framing not matter in a few years if they end up going completely to an ABS system for balls and strikes. You're going to start to see framing not matter. The only thing that's going to matter is, okay, how fast can you throw a guy out at second base? In which case you're going to start to see catchers training to, okay, well, I don't necessarily need to frame, so I can set my body up already to throw when there's a runner on base. And I think that Herrera has the ability to be, that stable catcher and give him that offensive ability, because like you said, it opens up the DH spot. It allows you to have Nolan Gorman, give him extra reps at DH if he starts to turn it on. It gives you a day where I can get Contreras off his feet. It allows you to be more flexible with Alec Burleson. So definitely a interesting spot this season, especially in a season where they're not necessarily looking to contend, to see what you have in Ivan Herrera as a catcher.
League average catching is not the cardinal way, is what Samuel says. I will take league average catching if I am getting Ivan Herrera's bat attached with it. I am willing to compromise a little bit on that. I understand what the standard has been in St. Louis for defensive catching, and I get it. So, but I will happily take league average catching if it means Ivan Herrera's bat is attached with it. Okay, he is Hunter Mulholland. I'm Ethan Hannaford. This has been the Card Central 365. Got to take the opportunity to tell you about our wonderful, wonderful, wonderful partners with DraftKings. Missouri, we've made it. It is December. In fact, it's been several weeks now that sports gambling has been legal in Missouri, and now you guys can make every game that much more exciting with the same game parlays, the money lines, the props, and it's all from your phone. It's all safe. It's all secure. You guys get how this goes. You guys understand how the game day vibes go. Now with DraftKings Sportsbook, you guys can bring all of that energy into your pocket. And right now, new Missouri customers You just bet $5. Guess what? You get $300 in bonus bets, immediately. No waiting, no nonsense. It's just pure action, powered by America's top-rated sportsbook app. You can download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use the code STL Sports. New customers in Missouri bet $5 and get $300 in bonus bets instantly. That's code STL Sports. The crown is yours in partnership with DraftKings Sportsbook.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. 21 plus, physically present in Missouri. Eligibility and restrictions apply. Terms at DraftKings.com/sportsbook. Bonus bets expire 7 days after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see sportsbook.draftkings.com/promos.
Well, we have gone through a couple of our most intriguing 2026 storylines. I know there were some people out there asking if we could do a couple of more. We have to wrap, but guess what? The off season is still we're not even halfway. There is still plenty of off season. Well, maybe we're probably getting to about halfway, but there is still a lot of off season left, and as a result, there's going to be a lot more time to discuss more intriguing storylines for the 2026 season, in upcoming episodes. So we're going to go ahead and wrap and say so long, say Merry Christmas. We hope that you enjoy your time with your friends, with your family, and that hopefully the Cardinals can give you guys maybe a nice little present before Christmas. Maybe we see some trade action. We know the stove has been cooking here as of late. So Hunter, thank you very much, my good sir. Merry Christmas to you.
Merry Christmas to you, Ethan. Merry Christmas to you, chat. Let's have a good one. And hopefully, like you said, we'll get some news. I see DKT saying, hopefully we're back on here later today with some breaking news of a trade. But I'm not necessarily sure that that's going to happen today, but we'll see what happens. You never
we shall
know.
see.
Kind of come out of nowhere sometimes with those. So,
indeed it does. He is Hunter Mulholland. I'm Ethan Hannaford. This has been Card Central 365 on STL Sports Central, presented by DraftKings. The crown is yours.